Hi, and welcome back to 417 Fox, your channel for the automotive DIY enthusiast. On today's video, we continue the build on the two-tone Cobra clone. What we're going to be working on today is doing body work. Now, this is a continuation from the previous video where we did all of the blocking on the car. So all the blocking is complete now. Now it's time to show you what we found with all of that block work. So if you missed that video, you definitely want to make sure you take a look at the proper process on how to correctly block a car. And now let's go take a look at what we found. I would hate to count, but I have counted a little bit. I am pretty sure there is anywhere between 30 and 40 areas on this car that will need to be addressed. So just on this roof, if you'll take a look after blocking the car, there is a lot of dots. And that's how you see, because everything that you see there that is still a shiny spot is an area that's low. These are the kind of things that if you would have took out a machine sander and did all of the machine sanding on this, you would only seen probably after it's sanded a good 20% of what these surface imperfections are. So that's why you take the time to go ahead and either start with the 220 or 320 depending on your surface, so that will help you identify any of the low spots that are on the car. It's also going to help you identify any of the high spots as well. Now the same would apply too on using primer if you were just had the car in primer and blocking, except when you're using primer you want to use some type of guide coat, and we'll discuss that later when we're doing our body work. Alright, so I'm going to take you in for a closer look. As you can see, areas like this on the car, those are pretty easy to find, right? Even this one probably, that one may have not been able to be found, but just here you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 just on this third of the roof. But that just goes to show you, don't assume that there aren't a lot of imperfections just because you may not be able to see them or feel them. The block does not lie. I can assure you, blocking a car out will show those imperfections that you can't see, and it's going to help you get that DIY professional result. Alright, I think it's time to get started doing some body work. Now remember, your first option is not always body filler, or commonly referred to as Bondo. Now Bondo is not typically used, that brand, in the auto industry anymore. There's a lot better products out there than Bondo. I'm going to show you what I use here today. So we're going to use some filler, but that's not always your first option. If you've got a panel that you can get to the back side, it's better to hammer and dolly it and then go ahead and use a small amount of filler. The less filler you can put on a car, the better off you're going to be. This is the area we're going to focus on doing hammer and dolly today. That's a pretty good little divot, as you can see. So I'm going to get the camera set up and show you how to do that, and then we'll do some body work. Alright guys, I've got my handy dandy Maddox, the hammer and dolly here that I picked up at Harbor Freight. It works for me. If you was to say you were using a Harbor Freight hammer and dolly to professional auto body technicians, they'd probably laugh at you, but for us DIYers at home, I think it works just fine. Take your dolly underneath that area. You want to get it pressed up against the dent, and you don't want to just start hammering down straight. You want to make more smooth hammers, because the reason why, if your hammer is not completely flat, you'll make dents around the curvature of your hammer as you're denting down. So I'm thinking about slide hits like this. You hear how the sound changes when I'm hitting the dolly just right, and you also see I'm not hitting it that hard. Steel is not like aluminum. Steel wants to go back to where it was. Aluminum, however, is a different story. So now I don't want to go too far. I can still tell it's low, so I'm going to go ahead and keep on just a little bit more. Now let's grab our block and see how we've done it. Alright, I got my block here. Just going to go side to side like normal, and it's going to highlight what I still need to work on. Dent, which was all the way over here, I have flattened out perfectly. So this half right here I have flattened out. Now you can see right here I'm still seeing shining, so I need to work more. Now that I wipe that off, you can see half of that dent is completely gone. Now I'm telling you, it's flat. There's no body filler needed right there. So we're going to continue. I'm going to make sure my dolly's more on the inside right here. And I'm just gonna continue to see how that done. Block her out. I've even made it a little further now. Look at that. Now how big is that? We've gotten about 2/3 of that dent completely gone. Get it all the way on the inside now. And we're see what we got. Ooh, doggy, look at there. Very small amount of dent left. Very small. And that was probably the deepest spot of the dent to begin with. Tell you what, that is probably about as good as you're going to get it. I think that is small enough to where you could actually take just a little bit of primer. We'll probably put just a little bit of glaze compound on it and roll over that. Plus we already have a couple of areas that are going to need a little bit of glaze in it. A couple of these low spots here, like here. So while we're doing that, we'll spread a little bit of glaze out on that. Make sure all that's really good and smooth. So now I've just got some 80 grit that's a stick-on type 80 grit, and I'm just going to go through here and just in those areas just scratch it up with 80 grit.
Get it good and scratched. We're going to be covering it with filler anyway. I don't want to go in much further because the more you go outside of that area, the more you're going to have to work to remove those 80 grit scratches.
All right, now guys that I've got it all scratched out, we'll go ahead and blow it off. Most of it off of here, but blowing it off is not enough. I like to use isopropyl alcohol. For one, it has a low flash point and is a good cleaning agent preparing the surface. So I'm just going to go ahead and spray the whole surface down. Wipe her off. You do not want anything that's going to inhibit that filler from sticking to the surface. Now it's time to go mix some filler. Now I used to use, I'm going to grab it real quick, this mixing board right here. Now I've been using the back of it for some time now. Now these are great, nothing wrong with them, unless you do what I did. Oops. I was mixing some and left it on here. So that's why I've been mixing on the back side. Now the other downside to using a mixing board like this is the cleanup after every time that you put your product on here. What I bought here just recently, and it was super inexpensive. They also come with a spreader. These are tear-off sheets. So each time you get one used, you can tear it off. I'm going to put a link down here in the description for this. I got this last weekend from Amazon. I've used, I think, 3 sheets off of it. I love it. Alrighty, I've got our lightweight filler. I'll go ahead and stir it up. It will separate just a little bit on you while it's sitting around. So go ahead and get it stirred up really good. I just use the paint mixing sticks they give you free at the paint store. We're not going to need a lot because all these areas are very minor, so I'm not going to get a lot of filler on this mixing board. Make sure you read the instructions on your filler on how much it takes your catalyst. So your hardener, you want to mix these up by squeezing them back and forth because they will separate over time. I think that one is about empty. I'm going to use my bigger tube. Now your hardeners, it's best to go ahead and take the cap, squeeze it to the point of where the product is about where your hardener is just about to come out. Then go ahead and put your cap back on. Now you got most of the air out of it. Now go ahead and knead it. You're going to mix this hardener up. It separates after it's set on the shelf. So once you've got that kneaded up really well, since this is a larger tube versus the same product, which is a smaller tube right here, when you read the instructions on this, it will tell you to put like an X. Now I know I don't need that much on this small amount. That is all I'm going to need for that small of an amount. Now remember I said I'm going to go ahead and put my fiberglass filler on here. It's about 10% of the volume. I've got 2 spreaders here ready to go. I've got a couple of smaller areas. And I've got my normal spreader. Now when you mix this up, you don't want to get a screwdriver or paint stick and stir it like that. All you're going to create is air bubbles. So when you're stirring it, you're folding it. So I'm folding it. Every time I mix it around, I'm folding it over. That is pushing any of the air bubbles out of it. Starting to look like we're getting some good consistency there. You're only going to have around 5 good minutes of workable time in the humidity and heat that I have here today. Constantly smushing it down, getting it cleaned off of the spreader, gathering it up. Now we're ready to go ahead and put some filler on the car. I'm going to spin you around here. Let's get some filler in these areas. Don't overdo it. You can definitely overwork this. Don't overthink it. Just a little bit on this edge right here. I knew I had. Keep on working our way down. We're working quickly. This is the area right here where we did our hammer and dolly on. I'm not pressing down hard, but I am pressing down. Make sure I didn't miss anything. Get any larger spots. Hey, look here. That's how long we had to work with it. It's already starting to kick. So now that is no good. That's how long you have, and that's how much I had left over right here. The beauty of this is, then I'll use my paper to help clean. I'll use my paper to help clean off my spreader. And throw that in the trash. Alright, to clean your spreader off, I use lacquer thinner. I've got a metal workbench here for a reason. Go ahead and spray a little bit of that on there. My shop paper towel. And wipe that spreader right on off. Now we're ready for round 2. Alright folks, now it's time. It's been about 5-10 minutes. It started to kick. It feels like we can go ahead and start sanding it. You can actually wait as long as you want, but the longer you wait, the harder it is going to sand. So you want to get it where it's still not quite hardened, but it is still hardened enough to go ahead and start sanding. I've got my block here with 80 grit. That's where I'm going to start when I'm going on filler. Now, something I like to use when I am blocking filler down, or also blocking if the car's been primered, I love to use guide coat. This is a for sure way that you're not going to miss any sanding scratches or low spots. The same principle would apply when you're using an existing clear coat to let that show you any of your low spots or high spots. Well, when you've got that with your fillers, it's a lot harder to see if you're just sanding filler. So you need a help agent, which is called guide coat. I've got a link down in the description on this guide coat. You can pick that up off Amazon, and it'll make your life a lot easier. And this will also help prevent you from making any unnecessary errors. So what I'm going to do with this guide coat, I'm going to spray it on the surface that I'm working. It's like a powder. You can actually buy it just in the powder form too. And once I start working this, The blocking motion is the same. You want to crisscross, let the paper do the work. You can quickly see where I had any high spots from the putting the filler on. We want to get past that. This is all real time. It's probably been less than 10 minutes that I have put that filler on, and it's ready for sanding.
Thousand years later.
All right, now that all the 80 grit is done, now it's time to go ahead and switch over to deciding what we're going to do next. Now you've got two real options right here. Now if I was just working on a single repair area, say one dent on one panel, I would probably just go ahead and finish that area off after I've done the 80 and I've stopped at 80 grit, and I will go ahead and take some glaze on top of that. Glaze is not meant to be a filler per se as far as thickness. It's more of minor imperfections. It spreads very easy, it's a lot thinner, and it goes on very smooth. But since our case is we've got a lot of area that needs to be addressed, and of course, what is one area of the car that you want to look the very best? Well, that's the top of it, right? Your hood, your top of your fenders. Those areas is really where you want it to be the absolute best. So what I want to do is go ahead and switch over, and I'm going to go to a high build primer. Now the primer I'm going to use is a DTM, which is also called direct to metal. It's made by 5 Star. Now in this case, since we're down to 80 grit, what I'm going to do is take it up to 120 grit, go ahead and flat block it out with 120 grit, and then we're going to go ahead and take our DTM and put 2 to 3 coats on there. You do not want to go more than 3 coats, if I remember correctly, with a 5 Star. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go ahead, and you can use a couple of different blocks. It's up to you. I'm going to go ahead and switch over to a longer block. You don't have to use a block quite this long, but I'm going to use the longer block just to get it done. I'm going to go ahead and use this block, kind of an old school one. I've got 120 grit. I'm going to go ahead and sand this out really quick. It won't take long, and then I'll be ready to go ahead and put our high build primer on it. Alright guys, so anytime I'm doing body work, since we've got that 120 grit done now, I like to wear gloves. 2 reasons. 1, to keep my hands clean, and 2, which is the most important, is that by putting a glove on, or if you didn't have a glove on, if you can use some type of towel, for some reason, I don't know how it works, if you put your hand down flat on the surface and you run it with some type of towel or your glove, you will feel irregularities in the surface a lot more than you can just with your bare hand. I promise you. It's called textile sensitivity on your fingers and your hands. It will increase it by 5-fold by having something in between your hand and that surface. You don't want to do it with your fingertips. You want to lay your hand flat down and rub it. And the only area that I could feel, and it is so minor, there's a very small area right in here, which is probably a little bit of that high spot. Now I think once I put the 3 coats of high build primer on here, all that will be gone, but we could always address it if we need to. But I'm going to tell you, overall, other than just a little bit right there, this area feels great. It feels really good, because when I look at this car after it's painted, I want this to look like glass. And all the work is not when you put the paint on it. It's all the work that's done right here that will give you that glass-like finish, that will give you that professional result that's still DIY. Alright guys, it's time to wrap today's video up. I sure hope you enjoyed today's video because I sure enjoyed bringing it to you. As you can see, I still got a lot to do what I showed you today left on this car. So I better get to it, and I'll see you guys on the next one where we do the high build primer. And make sure you smash that subscribe button so you don't miss those upcoming episodes, because guess what? We're getting just one more step closer to getting this thing into paint. And I am so excited about an upcoming episode, and it's probably going to take 3 parts to get it to you, where I have a DIY professional result paint booth. It's nothing like you've ever seen before. I've come up with an exciting design. You're not going to want to miss that one. I'll see you guys next time.